Houston, we have a problem. In 1944, the US dollar became the world's reserve currency. In 1971, we left the gold standard. In 2008, the debt system cracked. And in 2020, central banks went effing nuclear and printed more money than you could possibly imagine. Money to the moon and back multiple times. It's all part of a multi-decade pattern. No one's in charge of the ship, man. We're just rudderless out here in the sea of insane money printing. And now we're entering the final stage. Stick around to see where Bitcoin fits into all this, by the way, because it's a very important part of the picture of the future of what's happening. See, most people understand the idea of a recession. The economy slows down, unemployment rises, central bank cuts interest rates, prints money, hooray, it's time to party again. But what if the playbook stops working? At what point do you find the last straw that breaks the camel's back? According to billionaire hedge fund manager Ray Dalio, that's exactly what happens at the end of what he calls the long-term debt cycle. A pattern that doesn't play out over years, but decades or even a lifetime. Here's how it works. Economies grow by borrowing. Debt fuels spending, which of course then fuels income, which then allows for, surprise, surprise, more borrowing. It's a self-reinforcing loop. Governments do it. Businesses do it. Households do it. Your alcoholic Uncle Joe does it. Everybody gets used to the addiction of cheap credit. But over time, debt builds up to unsustainable levels. Eventually, borrowers can't keep up with the repayments. Creditors start getting nervous. Lending slows down. The music stops. And when the music stops, the system begins to deleverage. Now, this isn't your typical recession scenario. Ray Dalio compares it to the 1930s Great Depression, a period where asset prices crashed, unemployment soared, and debt deflation set in. And here's the problem. You can't solve a deleveraging crisis the same way that you fix a recession, okay? Lowering interest rates doesn't work when rates are already near zero. People in this situation are too deep in debt to borrow anymore anyway. Now, just to be clear, the US Federal Reserve has held rates near zero for 7 years after the 2008 financial crisis. Money was dirt cheap. And then again, from 2020 to 2022, during the COVID pandemic, we saw rates again near zero. Now, obviously, they've surged since then. We're back up to 4.5% rates, which is fine. We had the dot-com bubble in the 1990s, with those kind of rates. But this is not normal monetary policy. This could be seen more like desperation. We saw it in Japan in the 1990s. We definitely saw it in the 1930s. So where are we now? Well, the U.S. national debt is now over $37 trillion. I think we hit that today. Interest payments alone are $1 trillion this year, more than the entire defense budget. Globally, debt has ballooned to a $324 trillion global Armageddon, the ticking time bomb waiting to take the entire global economy down. And as we see AI surge, robotics surge, millions, potentially billions of people lose their jobs as a result, the 1930s are looking like a pretty dicey time for the global economy. Until then, though, we have the final great bubble of the cycle, the AI bubble, the crypto bubble, the everything bubble. And when it pops, it's going to be real bad because the debt bubble is going to pop. Unemployment is going to surge thanks to AI and robotics. And it's going to be a complete reckoning of modern society. Now that all sounds depressing as fuck, which is the perfect time to let you know about Femex. Yes! Guys, if you've been waiting for the right time to start trading or to switch to a better exchange, this is it, because Femex is the original powerhouse in crypto. It's trusted, it's liquid, it's global, and no matter where you're based at, you can trade with total freedom and elite level security. They got all the big coins, they got the deep liquidity, and when you use my link exclusively, you are going to instantly get upgraded to VIP level 2. That's 50% off your spot maker fees and 40% off your futures maker fees. That's a huge deal. On top of that, I mean, if you're a big trader, you know how much money you're going to save. On top of that, Femex is handing out to $30,000 in trading deposit bonuses, depending on how much you deposit, how much you trade. It's insane value. It's a crazy deal. It's open to everyone. Don't miss the opportunity. Tap that link while it's still live. Back to the depressing debt bomb shit. Look, to understand how we got here, we have to rewind the clock a little bit. See, after World War II, global leaders created a new financial system called Bretton Woods. The idea was simple. The US dollar would be backed by gold. Other currencies would be pegged to the dollar. It gave the world a stable anchor, and it made the US dollar the king of the proverbial hill, the king of the global economy. But by the 1960s, the cracks were starting to show. America was spending more than it could afford. Surprise. In 1971, President Nixon slammed the brakes and he took the United States off of the gold standard, making the dollar essentially into a worthless piece of paper. Just like that, money was worth nothing, although we still perceived value of it. Since then, it's gone down so much in value that it's almost laughable. It became essentially whatever the government said it was, and the whole thing became backed by a trust me bro model, and that changed everything. With no gold constraints, central banks could print as much money as they wanted whenever they wanted. Got a problem, print some more money. They get to front run it anyway. Them and their banker buddies, they don't care if it screws you over. Every time the economy hit a rough patch, crash in the 80s, dot-com bubble in 2000, housing collapse in 2008, the answer's always been the same. Cut rates, print money. Cut rates, print money, which again disproportionately favors the banks, the big money interests, the government, because they get to front run you on all this bullshit. In 2008, the Fed implemented a new tool, quantitative easing, or QE. It sounds complicated, but it's basically this: the Fed prints money to buy bonds. It's fucking crazy. Pushes interest rates lower and floods the system with liquidity. Now, it was supposed to be a temporary emergency measure. Sure. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a temporary emergency measure, it is the new norm. QE went from emergency to that's just what we do now. Every time there's trouble, we go back to the same broken solution. The same solution of kicking the can down the road. More debt, more money printing, more stimulus. The future is going to be divided up into people who have Bitcoin and assets and everybody else who's fucked because robotics took their jobs, AI took their jobs, and the money's worth nothing. The governments have all fucking collapsed. The debt is rising faster than a SpaceX rocket. The playbook that saved us in 2008 is not going to keep saving us forever. The debt's becoming too big and too unsustainable and too unmanageable. The central banks have failed you. Maybe by design. Well, Ray Dalio looks at debt cycles. Historian Neil Howe and William Strauss. Neil Strauss, he wrote a good book back in the day. Anyway, they look at generational cycles. They call it the fourth turning, a recurring pattern of history that unfolds in 4 stages or turnings over roughly 80 to 100-year periods. Each turning lasts about 20 to 25 years and mirrors the rhythm of human generations: growth, unraveling, crisis, and renewal. Now, according to the book, we are now deep in the 4th and final stage, the crisis phase, which is not a great time to be living through. A repeat of the 1930s, the 2030s could be a similar situation. And here's an interesting piece of information for you. People talk a lot about the Great Depression. Well, stock market boom in the 1920s, great. I think we're getting a similar thing here, actually. The AI bubble, the crypto bubble, it's gonna go higher and crazier than most people think, okay? But here's the thing, the AI threat for unemployment is absolutely here and real. Robotics are bigger than ever. Humanoid robotics are gonna start flooding the market in the next few years. AI are gonna take a lot of white collar jobs. Robotics are gonna take a lot of blue collar jobs. Robo-taxis, robo-trucks are gonna disrupt entire industries. We're talking hundreds of millions of people losing their jobs over the next 5 to 10 years. And there's an interesting parallel in history with this. You see, back in the 1920s and 1930s, something like half of America's workforce worked on farms. And then a little something called the tractor came out. Now, tractors had been in production for a while, but tractors started to become really mainstream in the 1920s and 1930s, meaning that half of the country's workforce who worked on farms suddenly didn't need to work on farms anymore. This is what really pushed the Great Depression and to the worst parts of it, because the unemployment soared so high and people weren't able to find jobs. The things that they knew how to do suddenly weren't doable anymore. The same thing is coming now with AI and robotics. In the window to get on a life raft, to make sure that you get rich, to make sure that you have a life raft, to make sure that you have something when this shit goes down, to have a backup plan when this shit goes down. A lot of the world's cities are not gonna be safe places in this situation. Desperation, crime, it's gonna be fucking bad. And you need to take care of yourself, you need to be planning. 5-10 years down the road, what if the AI unemployment crisis becomes real and society starts disintegrating as a result? Are you going to be holding Bitcoin? Are you going to be holding the wealth and the options to save you and your family? Because when it comes down to it, the government ain't going to fucking help you. When's the government ever helped you anyway? The government sure as hell is not going to help you when this happens. The only person who's going to be able to save you is you. Okay, I need you to understand that. I want you to be safe. Most people are going to hear this message, completely fucking ignore it, not even going to watch this damn video. But if you made it here, I want you to win, I want you to get rich, and I want you to create the financial freedom that's going to allow you to survive the 2030s because it could be effing crazy, okay? Obviously, hey, the fourth turning leads to the first turning, the renewal phase, and that's very exciting for the 2040s. But fuck, then 2030s you have to get through. Anyway, this period of breakdown, the trust evaporates, and massive upheaval reshapes society. Think of the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II. Okay, those were all first turning events. They were painful, they were chaotic, but ultimately transformative. And you want to be here for the transformative part, but you have to survive the painful, chaotic part, which means you need to be prepared. Now, let's be clear, not everyone buys into this theory. It's been criticized for being too vague, overly deterministic, borderline pseudoscience. Okay. But even some serious macro thinkers like Lynn Alden point out that the timeline just happens to oddly line up with the rising debt levels that we're seeing right now, the growing geopolitical tensions, what's going to happen with the rivalry between the USA and China, the collapsing trust in public. I mean, who the fuck trusts any government or any media now? Public institutions are completely screwed, okay, and the unemployment crisis is coming. It all oddly makes sense. If you pile up enough debt, stretch your political systems to the breaking point, create enough crisis. Oh, the aging, don't even get into the aging population, the demographic crisis, good God. We have countries like Italy and South Korea that are going to lose 90% of their population in the next 50, 60 years. It's insane. Disruptive technology is only getting more disruptive. Something has to give. Something's going to break. And yeah, that's scary, and it should be a warning to you, but you can benefit from it and you can survive from it if you're aware. The fourth turning says we're living through the moment right now. And if history rhymes, then the chaos we're seeing, from banking crises to trade wars to social unrest to bloody conflicts, is just the beginning of an even larger transformation that will ultimately be good for our species and our civilization. But you have to get through it first. What comes after? Well, in past debt cycles, governments had options. They could cut interest rates, they could devalue the currencies, they could inflate the debt away over time. But this time, the playbook is starting to feel a little bit old. The US debt to GDP ratio is over 122%. Even developed countries like Japan, they do have a worse debt to GDP ratio. Usually that 122% ratio is the extreme warning level, okay? And mind you, Japan's the largest holder of US debt as well, so their fates are relatively intertwined. It all makes you wonder if this game of hot potato is going to really keep working. Now, the Fed's already pushed rates to zero twice in the last 15 years, but it requires a crisis to do it. And they printed trillions when it happened to keep the system alive, to kick the can down the road. At some point, it's not going to work. It works temporarily, but every round of stimulus just makes it worse, makes the problem bigger and less solvable. And yeah, short term, it feels good, like smoking a bit of meth. Feels good short term, long term, you know it's not going to be good for you. Add in fourth turning dynamics, geopolitical conflict, institutional decay, civil unrest. We are staring down the barrel of something bigger than a recession. This could be the end of the current monetary order, the end of the US dollar, the end of whatever we currently understand to be the global economy. That's why this cycle might end differently. But it's also why Bitcoin exists. After the 2008 financial crisis, Satoshi Nakamoto launched Bitcoin in response to fiat instability, to the monetary madness. With a hard cap of 20 million coins, it's a monetary system that can't be inflated, manipulated, or debased. And with an increasingly online internet world, don't you want to own a piece of digital gold? And guess what? BlackRock's paying attention now. The big boys are paying attention. US Bitcoin ETFs now hold 5.8% of the total supply or some crazy crap like that. It's getting nuts. Major corporations are adding BTC to their treasuries. Even countries are now exploring Bitcoin-backed reserves. I know we already have El Salvador, but the USA's launched officially a strategic Bitcoin reserve. What's going to be in that? Who the hell knows? Pakistan's doing it. The Middle Eastern countries are doing it. Why are they all stacking? Well, in a world where trust in governments, banks, and currencies is eroding fast, Bitcoin represents something new, something different, something worth taking a gamble on, because if it works out, it might just be worth owning some. Maybe the dollar survives, backed by something harder, like Bitcoin itself, or a basket of commodities. Who the hell knows? Whatever exactly plays out, we are currently entering into chaotic times globally. The AI wildcard, well, great, has some extreme implications for global society at a time when our debt bubble is getting completely unsustainable and demographics are pointing us in the wrong direction for most economies. Do we really expect rival nations to suddenly trust each other's money? Probably not. And with the US dollar more weaponized than ever, it's going to continue being a sticking point for other countries like Russia and China. That's why a neutral decentralized asset like Bitcoin might not just be a hedge, it could be the foundation for whatever comes next. Perhaps the Bitcoiners are going to be right all along, and this will truly become a global reserve currency. Now, we can't predict exactly how it all ends, but we can prepare. Be ready. Knowledge is power. Even listening to this conversation puts yourself ahead of the vast majority of NPCs who are completely fucking asleep and have no idea and be standing in line waiting for government handouts when the time comes. Not you. Not you. You'll be ready. Okay? And maybe, just maybe, the next system, it's already being built. One block at a time. Every 10 minutes, tick-tock, next block. Thanks for watching.